Hello, hello. So this week we'll actually be talking about how to de-tiger or detox our tigers in relationships and also in opening ourselves up again. I've received some questions about this topic, so I'm really excited to share. So firstly, about trusting in love again despite being hurt in the past. I don't know anyone who hasn't been hurt before by relationships, whether with their family members, friends, or a romantic partner. And it's a very natural response to be really shocked when you are hurt or when a relationship ends, especially if unexpectedly or painfully with a lot of emotions or drama. And a lot of times, many of us just choose to give up on love, give up on opening up to people to a certain extent. I know that I did. For a while, I just felt like there was something really wrong with me, something really broken or unlovable or so ugly and messed up and messy that no one could possibly love me if they knew the real me and got to know me deeply enough. And so for a while, I just kept people at arm's length, really being there for them, kind of as I was taught and conditioned to by both my past relationship with my parents and with the medical training that I had to do, but never revealing more of myself and allowing myself to lean on others, receive support, and show them when I didn't have it all together or when I couldn't be positive or put on a smiling face or a positive attitude. I just thought that I had to be a certain way, that love was conditional, that I had to earn it. And this made it very hard because I realized, wow, that made me really closed off. Those were my walls. Those were a way that I kept myself safe because for a long time, after betrayals, abandonment, it was really hard to trust that someone will be there for me. And I really found myself needing certainty of that this person will be there till death do us part, or like a lifelong friend, or just anything like that. And I was really needing that high level of certainty and commitment and really demanding it. And that made things all the harder too in allowing relationships to grow and develop naturally and organically. So I just want to remind you here that it is important to open ourselves up and be vulnerable again because the alternative, living without ever truly opening yourself up again, is terrible. It's horrible. Babies actually die without enough loving touch and connection. They found studies that they actually fail to thrive, even if they're given enough food and water and other nutrition, physical nourishment. But if they're not touched enough, if we're not held, if we're not loved, then for some reason, it is a need of us. And so perhaps those cliche quotes, there is some truth to them when they say perhaps the greatest risk is to never take risks at all. That is still a choice that you are making. So just reminding you that that is like you can't never choose. You can't ever not feel pain again because there will be pain either way. And so maybe that might help you open up and think that maybe it's worth the pain of loving, or when they say it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And another perspective, just reminding yourself, we're all going to die anyway. And how do we want to go through this journey? Do we want to do it mostly solo, alone, trying to do everything ourselves, which can be so exhausting? Or do we want to open ourselves up to interdependence and leaning on others for some companionship, support, even practical sharing of responsibilities, if nothing else? And that sadly, uncertainty is just a part of life because we can't ever control another person or how their life will unfold, how they will grow or change. Sometimes relationships don't last forever because we will just naturally grow or drift apart, even despite trying, or even despite our best intentions. Or we may have had an explosive ending even because of our differences in values that we've developed. And again, this doesn't mean that we are broken, not cut out for love, can't do this, or unlovable, because we are all just messy humans here to learn. We're on this earth to learn. And every relationship we have with anybody is a teacher and a lesson, because there's only so much that we can grow solo completely by ourselves. Because if we're cut off from all connections, we will never be tested in the ways that we most need in order to grow, or like to push our growth edges and to evolve. And actually, they found that attraction can be pesky sometimes, even because our unconscious or our subconscious just seems to know somehow and be drawn to the very people who have the most valuable lessons to teach us. This actually helps us heal if we're able to integrate it and take on the lessons and be self-aware enough to reflect and to have those difficult conversations with that person too, working through conflicts, misunderstandings, because that really is an opportunity to grow and deepen our connection and learn more about not just them, but ourselves too. And even if that relationship didn't last a lifetime, it probably wasn't meant to, it still served a purpose, because most relationships are not meant to last a lifetime. It's definitely not a failure if it doesn't last forever, despite what traditional society tells us. As long as it taught us something about ourselves or helped us learn or grow in some way, it was a success, and it was a meaningful milestone or step in our journeys. So just to remind you of that, in case that might help you open up again. Also, some things to remind yourself of is that I am wiser. With every experience that I have, we learn from our mistakes and our lessons. And so it will never just be the same as it was before. I can choose differently and better, or I can try new ways of responding and reacting and dealing with things. Even if it feels like you're repeating the same lesson over and over again, there are things that are a bit different. And it's okay. Sometimes we need to repeat them too in order to finally learn our lesson. So just trusting in yourself, that your self-trust deepens with every experience that you have. And so this may help you feel okay trusting again and trying again, no matter how much you've fallen down before and been hurt before. And also reminding yourself that there are 8 billion people on this planet. Everybody is different. This is a new person in front of me that I'm getting to know, and it really wouldn't be fair to put so much burden on this new person to make up for all of my old wounds and past hurts. They didn't cause it, and it's not their job to fix it. In fact, it's our job to heal ourselves enough so that we can truly give a fresh slate to the next person we date or who comes into our lives. And of course, there'll be some teamwork of working through difficult things together, but it's hard for a new relationship to even have a chance if it's weighed down a lot by your old heavy baggage and your filters. So that's what I have to say about that. The next topic question was actually about investing in relationships, how to recognize what are healthy relationships or relationships that can be more reciprocal, and how to value yourself more in relationships too. I know you've probably heard about all the green flags and red flags and yellow flags in between. I'll just touch on some of these because I have found from my experience that relationships truly require, it is a two-way street. For a healthy one. I know some of us have some obligations to certain family members or other people in our lives or coworkers that we may not be in connection with otherwise, if not for our circumstances. But for the relationships that we choose, friendships, and especially our romantic partners, we have a choice, and there are definitely things that we can look out for. And it's important that we do feel like we're giving, but we're also receiving, that it's fairly balanced. It doesn't have to be exactly the same or tit for tat, and everybody has very different strengths and ways that they love and express themselves and contribute to relationships. So some green flags I would say from my work and my experiences is just noticing, is someone kind? Like, are they kind to others? Are they kind, not just to you, to everyone across the board? Some people say you can look for how they treat service providers, like the waiter at your restaurant. And that's a big one. Just, are they a good-hearted person? And are they honest and transparent about their intentions? Or are they self-aware? A big piece of emotional maturity and emotional intelligence is that they've done some work on themselves, didn't need to be with therapy. It could be with books or programs or coaches and a lot of other ways to really get to know themselves and to know their values and to feel comfortable with themselves and know what they're looking for and that they're ready for commitment if they share your values. And this can take time to find out if they're ready to seek deep connection, or are they here to have fun? And that's okay, whatever they're seeking, as long as they are honest and transparent about it. Another big thing I pay attention to is if they are consistent with their words, their actions matching their words, so having integrity and following through on what they say they'll do, not dropping the ball. I see it as a form of keeping responsibility, keeping to your plans, or at least informing you with enough advance notice if they need to cancel, or just being transparent about that. And if they put in consistent communication and effort into connecting with you, that it's not just one-sided, you're always the one inviting them to do something or texting them or calling them to connect, that there is a proactivity to that person. Some people, they don't mean to be, they may be flooded with all of what their life is already full and going on in their lives. But so I think for friendships, I'm more forgiving about that. But if it's a romantic interest, then if they are interested in you enough, they would want to make space for you in their life. And it's okay if it's a gradual, small steps first, but just it's good to see if they are making some effort and being proactive about getting together. And on the flip side of that, some red flags are kind of some of lack of that and the opposite of that. For example, if there is irresponsibility with following through, if there's just hot or cold behavior, lack of communication or inconsistent communication, if you notice that maybe they are not ready for anything deep together, if they have any lack of commitments or deep connections with other people, and definitely some of the more obvious ones are more controlling behaviors. If they try to manipulate you or guilt trip you, or even try to change you, making some judgmental comments here and there, either about you or even about themselves or other people, and noticing how they treat, review, or comment on others. If they try to manipulate, or if they haven't done some of their own inner healing and inner work, if they have like a victim mindset and they blame external people or circumstances, or they make excuses for their behavior, or if they feel like they have an attitude of entitlement that the world owes them something. There are many more flags, but these are just some examples. And then some people do a crazy love bombing where they are just overly into you based on like what only a small fraction of what they know about you. It's not enough to warrant like that level sometimes of care or commitment, because you're still getting to know each other. And so unnatural pacing or oversharing can be it's like a yellow flag, I would say, because some people I know have connected very quickly and deeply and been very happy in their long term together. Everyone relates differently, especially if you've done a lot of your inner work and you know what you're looking for and what kinds of people fit you, then a relationship can get gathered together quite quickly. So I wouldn't say that there are hard and fast rules about pacing, but it is something, a bit of a flag, just if someone's saying like, oh my gosh, you're my soulmate, you're my future wife after like one date or a couple dates. And it takes time to know people. So some things to pay attention to. And then also I would say to many other people say this as well. Matthew Hussey, I remember he said, invest in someone who invests in you. Like don't over invest if someone's not investing back at around the same level, because you're setting yourself up for more attachment and a one-sidedness to the relationship that will a lot of times ultimately end up hurting you. Now, sometimes people do catch up to each other, or they've waited and that person changes their mind and catches up, but it is a tough place to start from. So I would say just kind of paying attention to the overall balance, if it is like a seesaw, and then just making sure that you match that. And like the risk with that is if you're sensing someone pull back, or if they are not investing much in you, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to either. Sometimes it could just be like you're playing a game of chicken a bit in that case. And for that, I would say it's okay to give a bit more, but like not permanently. Just give a bit more, go first, see how they respond. And if things deepen, then that's a good sign. And they give back more. Sometimes they're waiting for you because of their past hurt. They're waiting for you to give more before they give more, feel comfortable opening up and giving more. But to do that chronically over time, or for weeks or months, and without being given back to, that is an unhealthy dynamic. So I would recommend moving on, because no matter how amazing a person is, what amazing qualities they have, if you're in relationship with them, what matters equally is how they treat you. Do they value you? Do they appreciate and cherish you? Enjoying the time that you have together. And if they're not, then it kind of shows, if they don't appreciate you, then does this really have the potential to be a close and deep relationship? Because the best ones, they do see how rare the other person is, and they want to come closer and closer together, and they want to invest. So just pay attention if someone's not investing you. And sometimes that may not even be personal or have to do with you. They just may have a lot that they're going through in their lives as well, and they actually don't have the capacity, emotional or physical, for an actual new relationship right now. And that's okay. And that's why it gets harder as you get older sometimes to make new friends, or new really close, deep friends, because people often have a lot of friends already, or their friend circle already set, or they may have families and children to take care of. And there's just a lot. It can be hard for that. And so it's still something to pay attention to even check in about. And if someone just says, yeah, I don't have the capacity right now, I would recommend not waiting, because you don't know. There's no hard deadline or set period. Or you could even set a personal deadline for yourself. Like, okay, this person really is interested, but needs time to sort out their life. Like, I'm willing to wait whatever the amount that you set for yourself. But after that, if they don't make space for you, then I would say it's not a good idea to keep holding on. And there are so many other people that you could meet and invest in and get to know. So for topic number 3, this one was about de-tigering your filters. Just if you grew up with tiger parents, if you were criticized a lot, if you had high expectations, if you were never praised, this is kind of, it sets you up to feel like you are not enough for meeting your parents' expectations, or it sets you up to feel like you have to perform and that love is conditional. That gives you a lens of how not only you see yourself, but how you see others as well. And you may even unintentionally impose those same barriers or criteria on them, those expectations on them, that they have to perform or be a certain way in order to be, for example, be your partner or be in your life or have this role in your life. And it turns into quite a self-centered way of viewing love, because true, mature love focuses more on what we can give to someone else, what we can do for others, and that we're grateful that they just exist, rather than only looking at what they can do for us. They're not here to serve us. Love is loving them because they exist, not for what they do for us. And of course, it's not totally one way or the other. It's okay. We all have needs, and it's okay to still consider ourselves in this too. But again, if we are setting ourselves up for thinking like, oh, this person needs to show up for me a certain way, and only then can I love them, then that's not a healthy dynamic. But a lot of times, a lot of us don't even know better, because those are the frameworks that we've been given our entire lives by our families, and how it's shaped how we view relationships. So a lot of times this can present as we're holding on to unspoken or spoken expectations for others, especially our partners. I've found that I'm way more laid back with my expectations, if I have any, for my friends versus my romantic partner. And I'm trying to be more conscious about that and change that. But anyone, especially our partners or even our partners, we forget that they're just human too, and that no one will have a good day every day. Nobody can be perfect. Nobody can show up for us every day and meet our needs every single time. Certainly, nobody can mind read and know what they are if we're not direct and explicit about them too. And so, how can we appreciate their efforts and intentions, even if they didn't quite get it right or like do it exactly how we would have wanted or how we would have done it? Because we forget that they are a whole separate person with their entire network of how they are wired and their perceptions and everything. And so being able to get ourselves out of us, our stories, our filters, and into them really helps us build empathy and connection. Because if you are in a loving and healthy relationship, then you naturally will, when you love someone, you may default to your love language or ways that you love them that your partner may not be able to receive because they don't understand, because that's not the way that they would choose to love or experience love. But a lot of times, if we look for it, we can notice at least 3 things, 5 things, maybe even 10 things every day that our partner does for us that a lot of times are easy to take for granted or that we forget about because they're constantly there. And so I recommend just a simple practice of doing a gratitude list and sharing them with your partner or with whoever you want to improve the relationship with. I do a general gratitude list of 5 things, but I also make a relationship specific one too. Even the small things, because it's the small moments that add up to a satisfying relationship. It's really, when they say it's about the little things, it is the daily small gestures that show that we care for one another, that we try to make each other's lives easier, more pleasant, more fun. So just even the little things, for example, like, thank you for listening to me today, with like putting your phone aside and just listening to me vent. Thank you for giving me a hug. Thank you for caring and asking me how my day was. Or thank you for doing this mutual chore around the house, or even if you took something off of my plate. Thank you for smiling at me or being happy to see me. Thank you for choosing to be here with me as partners, loving me and choosing me every day. Because I know it is a choice. We forget that it is a choice. I mean, even if you're married or like whatever, legally bound, like people, 50% of people get divorces. It's like you taking our partners for granted is something that's so easy to end up doing, but we just forget there's all these different ways that we care about each other, and that, yeah, every partner we have, they could easily be with someone else. They have 8 billion other choices or 4 billion other, or however many other choices that they have, but they're choosing to be here with us every day. And I think that that really helps us lean more into gratitude and untigering our filters, removing the negative biases in our relationships, and just how to appreciate our partners more, and rather than focusing only on their flaws, because part of being a tiger parent is also just being like, well, you did 99% of these great, but you have this 1% that is still lacking, that you're doing wrong, and like everyone has flaws. They're not going to magically go away. And so sometimes the more that you think about the flaw, well, not sometimes, every time you more think about and pick apart your partner's flaws or that other person's flaws, then yikes, that's going to definitely get in the way of your feelings of love and connection with that person. It literally is like poison, focusing on only the bad. I mean, that's what we're used to, because we're so just trying to improve and make things better. And like, how can we improve if we're just complacent and only focusing on the good? I don't recommend that you totally ignore the flaws and the bad, but to give that 5-to-1 ratio, as they found that's what healthy relationships really need: 5 positive to 1 negative interaction. Just because our brains are wired to focus on negative things more, that's what helped us survive. So we still have those primitive reptilian parts of our brain in the back that it just hits us harder, negative things, and stirs us up more. And so intentionally cultivating appreciation and conscious observation of more positive things just helps balance that out. And plus, you've probably found too that if the more that we may nag or demand or be ungrateful, that actually poisons the less likely that the partner or the other person would be motivated to do what we want or request them to do anyway. So literally, let's detox our poisons. Let's drain them from our tigers, from our inner tigers, from our ancestral tigers that we were passed down by our tiger parents or other similar harsh authoritarian type parenting. And that's really hard because that comes out in our intimate relationships the most. And it's an ongoing work to do this. Along this vein, I will say that recognizing the unique value that each partner brings to you or that each person brings to you really helps with this appreciation. Because again, every person is different, different strengths, different natural styles of loving. And it can be helpful to just bring more awareness to not miss the ways that they love on you. The 5 Love Languages is an amazing test to take, very quick and easy, by Gary Chapman. I think there are personally more than just 5 love languages, but he has a nice framework of they are words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and gifts or tokens of physical tokens of appreciation. And so two people, if you can imagine, they could be speaking two totally different languages, like one person speaking English, one person speaking Chinese. And then if they don't understand each other, can actually not realize, oh, how much this person loves me, when you're just like, they're not speaking my language. I don't feel that love from them. I don't receive it in a way that makes sense to me. And again, this takes us back to stepping out of ourselves and our own ways of being to appreciate how someone else is. I do think it is wonderful and I do think that partners should, or it would be helpful if they tried to learn a bit, at least a few words of each other's love languages and really factoring that in rather than being like, well, it's my way or the highway. Like, these are the ways I love you and you should just appreciate that. So there's definitely a give and take to this. There's a teamwork about it, but it also can be intentional. You can appreciate more and they can, while they're learning the new language, or to speak more of your language as well. And the other piece to this is that every partner has traits that actually you wouldn't think it, but there actually is duality to every single trait. There are pros and cons to every single quality or trait. And a lot of times people have found that what they most loved about their partners, what drew them to them initially, at some point became annoying. And you're like, what the heck? How could this have happened? It's usually when the honeymoon phase or the limerence state wears off. And that's literally this psychological state where your body is pumping out like the love cocktail, kind of like drugs, truly, like dopamine, oxytocin, to help you bond. And that can last anywhere from 2 months to 2 years. And after that happens, the relationship can feel like, well, that it got harder because you don't have that sort of drug smoothing it out anymore. But that's actually the best opportunity to learn more about your partner, to really see each other in more of your wholeness and your flaws, and to grow and become even more loving and accepting towards each other. So for example, a trait like this can be, for example, if you were drawn to how responsible someone is and wow, they always make these plans, they're so prepared, they're such a planner. At some point you might be like, oh, but they're so rigid or inflexible, or they're kind of controlling. Like, why do we have to do it this way? Why can't we just be more last minute or spontaneous about some things? On the other opposite side of the spectrum, you can have someone who is like more last minute planner, carefree, spontaneous, laid back. And then at some point you may be like, oh no, that's too irresponsible. Well, we need to figure stuff out earlier on. And another big thing that I've seen is that, for example, spending habits too. If someone is frugal and responsible and good with money, but at some point you just be like, no, but they're too tight-wadded, they're a Scrooge, they're no fun, they're a killjoy. Whereas if they're loose or lavish with money and generous, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's great. They know how to have a good time and really live life to the fullest. But at some point you're just be like, are we going to live on the streets? Like, this is so unstable. So just know that, again, it's pros and cons to everything. Everyone has different tastes, and that's okay. It's kind of like that classic black and white photo. You know what I'm talking about with like the vase, but there's also two faces. So depending on if you look at the white or if you look at the black, you see two different images. And they are both there. It's not that one of them is more true than the other. It's just our perception. What do we choose to focus on? And that determines our experience of the relationship. Because our filters and our thoughts that we intentionally choose drastically, significantly affects our feelings towards that person. And then hence our actions, how we treat them, our behaviors. And then this influences the results we get, the responses from our loved ones, and just the overall results and impact to our relationship. And truly, like a circumstance or whatever someone does or how someone is, a trait, there's no universal answer to that. Like everyone has a different opinion. So everyone responds differently. And so how you view someone's trait or their action, it depends on your tastes. And your tastes, unfortunately, can change a lot depending on the season of life you're in, your experiences, what you go through. And this is why couples can grow apart as they each grow individually as people. And that's why there are no guarantees for relationships, and that uncertainty is just a fact of life. But you can choose someone based on the best decision you could with the information that you had, and based on what you know of them, knowing yourself and your tastes. And this is where it comes, that saying that goes, well, you can't really change someone a lot. They may choose to change on your own. You can't force them to change. So really look at what's in front of you right now rather than just the potential of what you hope the partner could be, or that, oh no, if they just tweak this, then we can be together. You're allowed to have your preferences, but it's important to really know what those are and find out about that person before you make a big commitment, because you're not for everyone and not everyone's for you. You can't force a relationship with just anyone. So it's important to find someone where there is enough baseline compatibility, who has some qualities that you can truly appreciate. And things can always change, but a lot of personality traits are quite stable. Someone, if they're honest, if they're kind, their emotional intelligence, their empathy. And so, again, reminding yourself that every quality has duality will help you be more appreciative about them. So that was a bit longer than intended, but this was a wonderful discussion, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like more support and personalized consultation of any kind, I do see individuals and couples as well. And I also have some books and PDFs and products that I'm releasing soon. So just reach out to me at drtooney@mail.com, not Gmail, but mail.com, and I can get you set up. I'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.